Hey everyone, Nina's here and welcome back and welcome in the second episode of building our service logger. And service logger is a simple DevX or platform engineering component that I'm trying to build with you. And simply it's accepting a file path and a message and write the message into a plain file. If you if this is like the first video in the tutorial you watch, I recommend that you go to the previous one and start from there. You'll also notice that I'm following a new approach or a new concept and building or getting ideas into production is like building the whole thing, like improving its working, understanding the problem, and having my code up and running. And then in the next episodes, we take this code, we break it down, we restructure it, and make it more clean and more maintainable and like to be cleaned and architectured well. Without further talking, let's uh, let's get back to the project. So I'll go to my Rust directory, and then I go to the demos directory and demo service logging. And in this demo, I'm starting to commit while recording and teaching this tutorial, so you can find the commit history and then get back to any point of the code. So let me make sure that it is clean. Okay, great. Now let's have our VS Code up and running. Okay, great. Let's just cargo run and here maybe test.text and a message. And let's make sure, yeah, text. Okay, good. So we are good. Now let me clean it, turn off the file. Okay, and let's write together a new to-do list for this episode. So the first one today is creating a live module. The second thing is to take or migrate the env-args functionality to the live module. And the third one is once we migrated the args, we'll just make sure that the live module is able to handle the arguments. And as you can see, like my AI Copilot AI pair programmer is like helping me. Once we confirm that it's receiving arguments, we can move to the next one, which is migrate the file handler to the live module. Migrated the file handler, we'll just make sure the live module able to handle the file, and that's it. And we can do some like error handling, and the final step is like testing that everything works fine. And that's, I think this is a fair playlist for today. Let's start with the first one. Uh, okay, that's from me trying to test. So I'll go to the source and then I just create a live module. It will be live.rs, and then I'll go to this live rs, and I I put the arguments within a struct, and I call this struct config. And so far I'm good with this naming convention and this structure, so I'll just do it here one more time. So I'll just go pub struct and we'll call it config, and my config will contain a file path and it will be of type string, and the second one will be a message of type string. And just to iterate on this point, I mentioned this before in the previous tutorial, but like my way or my style of building structs, it's having a restrictive and safe structure and safe functionalities like having restrict APIs. It doesn't mean you are putting a public struct. This doesn't mean you make all of its properties public. Just just expose the things that you really want and have to expose. So in this case, I'm having my file and message as private, and then I will go with the implementation. I will go implement functionality for the config. So as you can see, and I did this in the previous tutorial, and doing the same thing with Copilot a couple of times, it inherits your context and then start like suggesting stuff that you really did build before with the same context. So I will accept this and explain it to you. I'll just refactor it on a bit. Here we are accepting a vector of a reference vector of strings that is captured from the environment, that this will contain our arguments. And here we are checking against the arguments, just must be 3. I mentioned this before. 3 because like I'm expecting 2, the file path and the message, but the first one is always logged or blocked for the binary application itself. Then I have like the file path. I will assign the second argument and the third argument to the message, and here I'm returning an instance. It's already handled with errors the same way I'm doing it, so I'm returning a results enum containing the config instance and a static error, a lifetime, a string error with a static lifetime. Um, Over the last few days slash weeks, I practiced more enhanced version of this. So I'll just refactor this very slightly. I'll just remove the arguments from here, and um, and then I'll start accepting it within the new function. And here I'll just use the standard env environment, standard library environment, and then here within here I'll just define the args, and as you can see, it's catching up. So I have the args vector of type string annotated, and then env args, this returns an iterator, and the collect module that the collect sync module consumes the iterator and then returns the vector of type string. What else? Yeah, this new function is called the associative function, and you can call it by using 2 colons. So I think that's good for now. Let's move to the parent task and the parent main file, and then migrate this. So we don't need this anymore. I'll just remove it, and I don't need this as well. So what I really need is start using the library itself. So this is the library name, demos service logger, and this name is exactly the same one you defined here in the metadata in the cargo.toml. So I'm using the library as if someone else is importing that. So I'm importing the library, and I can say import the config. We can say like import everything for now, and then we can modify it if we need it. So here I have a file path and I have a message. I can remove all of that, and then I can just let config equal config new unwrap. So this should work. Like let's print the yeah, let's try this. Or no, let's print the config, the whole config thing, and yeah, and let's try it. Yeah, it won't work because we need to add the attribute of derive debug, so I can have it here prettified. So let's give it a try. I don't think this will work. Just a second. Let me comment that and then make sure that it's actually working and receiving variables, arguments. So I can say like cargo run and pass like maybe test.txt, and here like hi. Yeah, so as you can see, it's like here, file text, and the file is test.txt and the message is hi. So it's working fine. Let's get to, first let's handle the error in a better way. So in this cases, I need to, I can use like unwrap unwrap or else, and then I can inject closure. So I can remove this, I can have it more clean. To be honest, I love writing it, so just to we practice it and focus on it. So between the two pipelines, you put your variables as if like you are passing arguments to the closure. The closure is, I believe it's similar to the function. It's exactly the same structure, like accepting arguments and having a signature. And here between the pipelines, you accept the argument. So I'm accepting the error that comes from the operation, the config new operation, whatever error comes from this or bubble up from this, I will catch it here in the error variable. And then within the scope of this closure, I will just print line error, and here I have my error. And second thing, I can exit the process with non-zero code, means the process ended with an error. And now I have my error handled. So in simple terms, any error, anything that like trigger this error, for example, like if you didn't pass enough arguments, you should see this error. Let's test it out. Yeah, as you can see, like error, not enough arguments. This bubbled up from this function, and then this one, like this error handler, caught it, and now like triggered the closure, and the closure like put it like that. Okay, what else we can do here? Yeah, we can make, we should like have this working. First, let me mark the tasks that is done. Create a live module, migrate env functionality, make sure live module is able to, okay, yeah, so far so good. We need to make this work. To make this work, or let me think about it, if we will migrate it internally in no time, so no need to fix it. But to fix this, we can just expose the struct getters, like file path is a function, and here pass like the config. Like you can do something like config dot file path, and because it's a private, you cannot read it. So we just make it as a function, and here we're gonna like make a function. Let me make it, and then I can move it just for as proof of concept. So here it's a public function, works as a getter, and this getter returns like a reference to self file path, and this should work. Same thing, I can do it quickly with the help of my friend. Yeah, message, building a getter message, and here I just config dot message, and here we go. This should work fine. Um, Let me test.text and then like new message, and we should have a new message. Yeah, all good. So we now good, and we iterated on the concept of having your own getters. Now let's move to the next task. Migrate file handler to the live module. This means this part. We need to migrate this part to the live module. Here I have different ideas and different implementation ideas. Sometimes I feel like it depends on the need, but like basically we can create a private function that just returning a mutable file handler, and then we can have another function that is public that calls this function behind the scene and gets a handler and write to it. No need to like complex it. Will just we'll just have one that is called write public function write to file and it accepts an instance of self, and self here is on the configured config instance. Okay, And here we'll just go to this functionality, and we can just take it all, Scott, and put it here, like that. So just to recap this functionality. This functionality simply like tries to open a file system with open options, and it appends it, like check the flag of appending, so it appends. And this point, like create here means if you didn't find the file I'm trying to open, just create it. And here I'm just opening the config, the thing that we just did. I just remove config and just have like self file path, and here I can have like a self message. Yeah. So, and here for the file system, I just need to use standard file system, and I believe, yeah, standard IO write for writing to the file. And this needs like an error handling. So if anything happens here, I need to bubble up the error. So let's handle error across this function. So here as well, this might cause an error. I'll just use the question mark to bubble up an error. And here I will return the result. And result, I don't need to return anything within the OK enum, but in the error, I might like think of returning it a treat object and the dynamic error for that. I think, yep, that's it. What's wrong? Okay, yeah. And here I need just to return OK with nothing, and that's it. So here I'm returning OK with unit, or I'm returning error. Any error that happens within this function, it will bubble up and wrapped within standard error, and then bubble up to the caller of the function. I believe like if you are watching me, maybe this is the second tutorial or maybe more, you'll notice that I'm using the standard way of bubbling up errors. I prefer like my library bubble the error to the caller of the library, like not panicking within the library. I feel like this is better. If I'm using my library, I'd love to have the power to panic when I need to and continue my code as well. I don't need you to force panicking on me. Okay, so now I have configured. Let me also define, or we can just say, uh, yeah, I can have config dot write to file, and here I just use unwrap just for testing the idea. So here I configure the config, uh, and then here I'm writing to file. Let's test it's working. So let me do cargo check quickly. Okay, and then let me cargo run, and here I will pass it like test2.text. Okay, and the message is welcome in my video, maybe. Okay, so we have like text2, and yeah, welcome in my video. Okay, so for so good. Let me just commit that. So get status, get add source name, get add source library, and get status again, status get commit. And here we add a lib module, and then we did an update of migrate the arguments functionality to the lib module, and the third update like migrate the file handler to the lib module. I hope you like writing long commit messages. Actually, I love that. to help my friends and my colleagues understand what I'm doing and why I took those decisions and what changed and so on. So I like detailed commit messages. And then I'll push this. Okay, so now this is committed. We have here the option to also handle the error coming from this one. We can literally do the same thing with using unwrap or else, but because like we don't care about the output of this function, we only care about if an error happened. So I'll just use iflet error coming from this. Keep forgetting this one. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the same concept, like capturing the error within an error enum. So if any error comes out from this function, execute this, like show the error and show the process code. And let me make sure that it's working. Okay, my VD2, and we should have like here, yeah, my VD2 appended. And now we migrated the functionality and we make sure it's handling the file and we did the error handling. And I believe we also tested that everything works fine. Let me check if we can do something else here or here. Yeah, here I'm returning a string and giving it it's a literal string with a static lifetime, means it's like will be available for the whole lifetime of the process or the application. Actually, I learned a new technique which is calling this function into, and this function casts this IO error into like standard error, and this allows me to use the same design or the same concept of having a box a trait error object with a dynamic error. So this make it exactly the same design as the one below it. So I'm good here. Let me make sure it's 3, and now yeah, we have 3. So I think this wraps it all. I don't believe we need this anymore, or this as well here in the main. So as you can see, if anyone is integrating with our or taking our library and integrating it in her or his code, you just need to like just use the library, and then or she will have all the functionality here up and running and handled correctly. I think this is it for the service logger. I believe it's now done. We might have like a third episode to do some unit tests or might not. I'll add unit tests and maybe commit it to the commit. But like this is like wraps up everything. Now we touched on the like receiving arguments from the terminal or from the IO using the standard environment, processing the arguments and structuring it into a config struct, and then using this struct to like do further operations, IO operations, and writing appending to a file. This time we touched on how to specifically append to a file, not rewrite the file every time. This can be useful if you are trying to like use this service in maybe your server, or just for you can log ideas using this type of applications. Um, Let me check. I think that's it. So thanks for watching this tutorial. I'm preparing more tutorials and more advancing, as you might know now, like I'm learning Rust and I'm scaling up and moving forward. So the upcoming tutorials will be a bit deeper and a bit advanced, uh, and I'm learning Rust through teaching it. So I hope this adds value to you. And as always, I'm open to questions, feedback, and messages. And I want to thank the people who sent me messages on LinkedIn. I really appreciate that. And I considered all the comments you said, and then I will enhance it uh, w- within the upcoming tutorials. Thanks again. Have a great day, and see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye. Bye.